My name is Kelsey Spence, and today I will be discussing the findings from my postdoctoral work at the Royal Veterinary College. This work was a collaboration between myself and Jackie Cardwell at the RVC, Sarah Rosanowski at City University Hong Kong, and Josh Slater at the University of Melbourne. I'd like to start out by acknowledging those who helped us with this research, mainly the veterinary surgeons who very kindly agreed to participate in the study and share their experiences with us. We would also like to acknowledge the Alberata Trust who funded this research. So I'm going to jump right in and ask, what are exotic diseases? So exotic diseases are defined as those that are not normally present in the UK. Some exotic diseases are notifiable, and that means that you must report any suspicion of those diseases to the APHA. The British equine industry has seen several instances of exotic equine disease incursions over the past 10 or so years, most of them being sporadic cases concentrated in the southwest. The most recent incursions were equine viral arteritis in 2019 and contagious equine metritis in 2020, both linked to stud yards. So, what happens during peacetime when we aren't actively dealing with cases of exotic diseases? The UK Contingency Plan for Exotic Notifiable Diseases sets out several responsibilities for the government, owners, and vets to maintain the country's disease-free status. While there is an emphasis on shared responsibilities for preparedness, the government side is mainly responsible for preparing the policy and coordinating the response, while owners and vets are expected to maintain vigilance for clinical signs and report anything that seems suspicious. This, of course, means that owners and vets are the first line of defense and will act as the trigger for the government's response. The initial stages of any contingency plan, which is prevention, detection, and reporting, rely heavily on the actions or inactions of frontline responders, which in many cases will be veterinary surgeons. Despite their important role in preparedness, there is no previous research looking at how well this works or whether there are any barriers to an effective response. So the objective of our study was to explore primary care veterinary surgeons' experiences of and attitudes towards exotic disease preparedness. Our aim was to get a better understanding of the current state of preparedness and identify any existing challenges to carrying out an effective response plan. This was a qualitative study that used semi-structured interviews to have an open discussion about exotic disease preparedness. Participants were proposively selected according to the type of practice where they worked, how long they had been qualified, and their main clientele. This was not meant to be generalizable to a larger population, but instead it include a diverse range of perspectives in the data. The interview data were analyzed using thematic analysis, which is a qualitative method used to identify patterns of meaning across a data set. Patterns are identified through a rigorous process of data familiarization, data coding, and theme development. The resulting themes represent patterns identified by the researcher following that process. Through our analysis, we developed 3 overarching themes relating to participants' experiences and attitudes towards exotic disease preparedness. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to touch on the main elements from each of those themes. The first theme, the identity of the reactive generalist, related to participants' self-concept of their role as primary care practitioners. Many participants found themselves working within the firefighter model of medicine, where they responded to sick animals instead of proactively providing wellness services. The ingrained reactive approach meant that participants struggled to shift into a preventive mindset in the absence of an imminent threat. Participants also identified with the concept of a generalist, recognizing that they could not reasonably be an expert in everything. Over time, their knowledge became pointed towards common conditions, which moved them further away from specialist topics like exotic diseases. Recognizing this knowledge gap, Participants were pragmatic about unfamiliar clinical presentations and consulted their network of trusted specialists when faced with something suspicious. The second theme, working within the bounds of influence, encompassed participants' perceived inability to influence their clients' knowledge and behaviors. Within their client relationships, participants often position themselves as information providers or educators, which led to frustration when clients didn't follow their advice. Adapting to a client-led or a collaborative relationship with clients often led to better results. However, the shift to an improved relationship wasn't always easy. The vet-client relationship was often undermined by more accessible and preferable advisors, such as other owners on social media or paraprofessionals. The increased prevalence of competing influences became an added obstacle to change their clients' behaviors. The last theme, a fragmented horse industry, illustrated the culture in which participants worked, characterized by a lack of cohesion amongst its members. Overarching issues with coordination across sectors, such as unbalanced resources between racing and non-racing horses, fueled the view that the horse population existed under a siloed industry structure. The attitude towards horse management within the wider industry tended to be individualistic, where individuals made decisions to benefit their own interests rather than for the benefit of the collective herd. Participants perceived that owners did not have a sense of belonging to the national herd, which would prevent any effective outbreak response that relied on collective action. So, the title of this presentation asks if we are prepared for exotic diseases. Of course, there are some caveats in our work. We didn't do a formal policy analysis on the contingency plan, and our focus on veterinary surgeons means that the viewpoints from owners, government officials, and other stakeholders need to be explored to triangulate our results. What we can say from our study is that improvements are required before an optimal level of preparedness can be achieved. Based on these results, we've identified several areas where vets can be better supported at the front line of disease emergencies. The best way for vets to develop their preparedness is to focus on generalizable training that will help them succeed in first opinion practice, such as developing clinical reasoning skills and collaborative client relationships. This is more useful than specific exotic disease training and will better prepare vets for when they are faced with an unusual clinical presentation. The second is ensuring that primary care vets have access to support networks, such as trusted senior colleagues or infectious disease specialists. Spending the time to build trusted support networks now increases the likelihood they'll be used when the time comes for vets to ask for help. Third is clarifying the expected role of primary care vets in disease preparedness, particularly in engaging in biosecurity with their clients. If it is expected for them to take a more proactive role as a preventive advisor, they should have specific tools and training in order for them to succeed in that role. The last isn't necessarily a support area, but it's important to mention the fragmented industry identified by our participants. It's important to continue exploring the culture of the horse industry and how it might facilitate or prevent effective disease preparedness for all of its members. And with that, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'm very happy to be contacted if you have any comments or questions about our work. Thank you.